From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Wednesday, August the 6th, the year 2014. And now, here they are, Jim and Rich.
All right, Leon and Massaro off and running again, another edition of Armchair Experts. Oh, Mr. Massaro, you know, it was nice. I got to reach behind and grab this here. It was nice to see the article on the July 24th edition of the Pioneer Press about our pals Stephanie and Joe over there at Fanny Schmo's Bakery. But there's a picture missing from this article that there was online.
Oh, the picture of me?
The picture of you. I was wondering. I was wondering when I looked at the caption on there. Is that your witness protection program name?
Why? What was the name?
Manano.
Manano. You know, when
I thought I looks like Rich.
Can I see this for 1 second?
Sure.
Because who wrote this article? Okay, I think what happened is Marianne Pisano, I think probably because of financial reasons, Pioneer Press has got the person who writes the article also comes in and takes the pictures. So Marianne, I think, was the person who took the pictures, and she came in with a little camera. I don't even know, it could have been a phone camera, and she took my picture, and I believe I actually wrote my name down for her, or she copied it down and I spelled it for her. So, I guess we talked about this after she left, and I said, "Geez, is she the photographer?" And they said, "No, she's also the person who wrote the article." And I'm thinking that, you know what, this might be not that she could have been college age maybe or a little older. So I'm thinking that this is part-time work, and you're not always going to have the accuracy that you would like. Not that there's always the accuracy you would like in the regular daily papers either, but
well, that's true.
I think that might have accounted for the mistake in the name.
That's not well. It was a nice article. The picture was nice. Jimmy Sunshine even gets a quote in here.
You know what? Stephanie and Joe were really worried about that because they said when the lady came in to do the article, she went into the library to get to somebody who was a Fanny and Schmo's customer to have a quote about the story, that was going to be in the story, and they said, "Who the heck does she come up with out of every person in the library but Jim?" And they're like, "Why? They were actually worried. What is Jim going to say? Like, oh yeah, everything is good if." I don't know.
Yeah.
Everything's good if Joe's awake in the morning, but I don't know. Sometimes he comes in late, and you never know how it's going to be.
And you never know if he's had a gig the night before, if he's sober or not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
nobody wants to talk soccer with me, so...
Yeah, so he might have been in a bad mood.
Leon and Massaro never want to talk soccer with me, so I don't know what to talk
he
about.
did remind us numerous times yesterday that in Ann Arbor, and I still don't I still cannot believe that part of that crowd wasn't papered because he said they drew 109,000.
It was University of Michigan, so,
I think anytime they open that stadium, though, it's an automatic 109,000, isn't it?
I think so.
The other thing I was thinking, though, Jim, in terms of that, because it was a unique thing, and I don't even remember, it was one of the clubs was Manchester and the other was a well-known club as well.
Real Madrid, I believe.
I
think I saw some article somewhere along the way last night as I was looking on the internet, and I didn't go into any detail about it because
my point would be
I might have fallen asleep while I was reading it.
That when you have two of the best anything in the world, okay, and you could probably draw a crowd that size one time to see them. I mean, we've had United States football teams go over to England, and they draw wherever they play. They draw a capacity crowd. Yeah. Doesn't mean that the English are going to adopt football as their number one sport,
as they tried to get them to do with the European League.
Right, and that didn't work because soccer is king over there, and that's fine. Let it be king over there. We don't. We just don't want it over here.
All right.
So what stay over there.
So what should we get into today?
We're always into something. You said you wanted. Didn't you want to talk about Javi Baez? I see.
I have this. I'm excited. I'm excited about the fact that the Javier Baez era begins today.
And where is he going to bat in the order, Jim? We haven't figured that out yet.
I have no idea yet. I have not seen anything yet. Obviously, they play tonight, so it's too early to see a batting order. But I think your comment. What were you figuring? You'd hope you don't see him lower than sixth.
Yeah, I mean, these to me, to give him some pitches, good pitches to see. I mean, you can't bat him eighth or seventh. I'd say fifth or sixth. He's got power. Right. He's got speed. You don't want him. Yeah. You know, to say if you're going to put this guy eighth in the order, why even bring him up? You're not going to get that many swings. You're not going to get swings. I mean, it'd be a difficult spot to be in the order. It's not an easy spot to bat in. So I'm thinking about fifth or sixth.
So all right. So you're going to have Coghlan,
Alcantara, Rizzo, Castro, however it's going these days, whatever.
Castro,
Rizzo, and then I'd say Baez. That'd be my thought. Unless they're going to really give him some responsibility and bat him third.
No, I can't see that.
Why?
I can't
Why?
I can't see that yet. Just for the kid, just for the pressure on him.
Well,
I can't see that yet.
Don't forget the old Billy North deal, where the best year Billy North ever had was when he was with the A's, and he had Bert Campaneros in front of him and Reggie Jackson in back of him. So he saw a lot of good pitches.
Yeah, that's
true.
So
it's not a matter of the pressure of the spot in the order. It's a matter of the type of pitching you're going to be able to see. And if you have, say, a speedy guy like Alcantara on the bases in front of you, and you have a good, if you have a solid hitter, assuming they're still going well, like, say, Rizzo behind you, then you're going to see some good pitches.
Yeah. Now, it's going to be interesting because we're starting to see the flow of the position players that we've been hearing about. Alcantara, Baez now.
Actually, I'm sort of disappointed in this, though, Jim.
Why?
Because so far they've
have nothing to complain about now.
So far they've stuck to their plan, and this is going away from their plan. My feeling, they kept saying, is that you're not going to see. Now Alcantara was a different story. I mean, but I thought Baez and Bryant were guys you're not going to see until next year.
And you're not going to see Bryant this year.
Yeah.
You're not going to see Bryant.
And you're not. But why? Now, I mean, you're going to see Baez. You're not going to see Bryant. Why?
Yeah.
Why is that? I mean, their plan was to keep both of these guys for another year in the minors. And, you know, I just don't understand what they're doing.
Well,
I mean, I think they're going away from their plan.
I think you're right. They seem to be going a little bit out of their plan, but were they forced into this by the deals?
Well, they're the ones who made the deals.
They're the ones who made the deals. They felt maybe they felt that was the opportunity. You know, Baez had a little bit of a challenge this year, but got the slash line up to an acceptable level, and has hit 23 home runs.
Oh, see, that's the encouraging part. He had a bad start. He recovered from that, and his power numbers are up again in AAA, just like they were in AA. So, I'd say there's a good bet, considering that he's been consistent at those two classifications as far as power goes. I think there's a good bet you'll see him hit with power at the major league level. And the spring trainings that he's had with the big team, he's shown that he can do that. So I would expect to, I don't know, I wouldn't make a prediction on the number of home runs that he's going to hit from now till the end of the year. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him hit maybe 6 to 10 home runs between now and the end of the year.
Early in the season, And I mean, I think this is a sign, and I'm just glancing at this article here in the Sun-Times from Gordon Whitmire today, quoting Jason McLeod, but also indicates in here that early in the season, Baez was down to 142 with 5 extra base hits, and that was through May 15th. Since May 15th, he's hit 305 with a 606 slugging percentage, 20 home runs in 76 games.
Well, I think we talked about the start that he had on a previous show, and I think one of the things that I'm thinking that it's a human nature to the 2 spring trainings that he had with the Cubs. I think that he was able to, and I'm reading into this, so I mean you can't take this as fact, but my take on it would be the first spring training. Okay, I'm a young guy. I had a good spring training. They send me down. That's fine. The second spring training, when he did just as well, the fact that he was sent down, he may on one level have been able to understand it, but on another level maybe said, well, what the heck is going on here?
Sure.
And that might have, just put him in a little funk, and in some respects I can't blame him.
Yeah. Jason McLeod says he feels he's not anywhere near, he doesn't think he's near where he's going to be eventually.
Oh, well, that would make sense.
Yeah, and I think probably one of the reasons that you're seeing him now is, at least from McLeod's comment, you can read into that he's become more of a professional and he's matured.
Oh, they would know that better than anybody.
Right, so now is the time to bring him up. So this should be, I'm looking forward to watching the Cup game tonight.
Wow, you're going to actually watch the Cub game?
I'm going to watch the Cub game tonight.
And I'm impressed. I haven't watched the Cub game all year, I don't think.
I'm going to watch a Cub game. That should be good.
Of course, I probably won't watch the Bears on Friday either.
First exhibition game.
Actually, those are usually the most fun. You see a lot of the kids play, and
you see a lot of people.
You actually see good football, entertaining football, not this formulaic crap that they play during the season.
Watch the mouth.
Can I say crap, John? Okay.
Okay, John says it's okay.
All right.
Crap.
He didn't have to cross himself and go down to Divine Savior and say a few. Are those novenas, John? I'm not Catholic. Do you say novenas for us when you get there? Or?
Well, I try to talk to the Lord, but sometimes he falls off the cross when I tell him what I want to talk to him.
Man.
John, I don't know what you're doing over there.
I'll tell you something. John has got some pep in his step today, and
I don't know. He's talking about his women and everything else. And,
I'm telling you. What happened up in Wisconsin this weekend, John? Can you say that on the air or what?
Nothing. I just fought raindrops most of the time. Cut grass and fought the raindrops. Okay. That's about what I did.
I thought you might have, maybe gone out for a bite to eat and run into some wild female out there or something.
No, not really.
Some wild.
You never know.
Some wild Packer fan.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's all. You turn on Channel 4 up in Wisconsin, which is WTMJ, and that's all they talk about. The whole 10 o'clock news is all about the Packers.
Hey, that's what they got, John.
And there's other stuff to talk about, but I tell you, the state of Wisconsin is really a Packard football.
No doubt about it. Years ago, when I was traveling a lot, one of the states that I travel in quite extensively was Iowa, and you get I talked to my customers who were sports fans, and you know what? You didn't know there was 2 guys. There was Jesus Christ, okay, and then right after him was Hayden Fry and Lute Olson, okay, right. In that order, and maybe not always in that order.
It depends on what kind of year Jesus had.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. So football season, first exhibition game this weekend. What do you think about the? And I think we talked a little bit about it yesterday. Is it really seriously being considered to bring Kyle Orton into camp? Or is that just the press?
I think that's the press. I mean, obviously I could be wrong. I think that when we talked yesterday, I think Jimmy Clausen actually is, for the Bears, for the situation they have, almost the perfect guy to be the number 2 guy. I think he's going to be the number 2 guy, and the reasons that I believe that is if the fact that Cutler has been prone to injury, I think you need to have a guy like Jimmy Clausen, who was a top-notch college quarterback, came into the pros, had not the best experience. So what he brings is he's young enough to, he's young enough but has had enough of a bad experience in the pros to be willing to be the second guy. But if something would happen to Cutler, he's also young enough to, step in and maybe be the guy if something would happen where Cutler would have a career-ending injury. So, I think the Bears are looking at a situation where it's the best of both worlds. This guy's a young backup, but he's not going, his career situation has been such that it's not gonna be a quarterback competition. He'll be willing to be the number 2 just to get the chance. And the other part of it is that if something would happen to Orton, or Cutler, I should say, he's young enough to step in and have a long career himself. So I think it's a really good match.
And I think probably, based on that, I do think it's a good match. And I think the fact that he's coming to a team where your head coach has this reputation for being the quarterback whisperer, and can bring something out of someone.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
think he looks at that as a plus, where I can either, I can be ready to be the backup and step right in, or I can learn enough, mature enough, and somewhere down the road maybe somebody will pick me up.
Yeah, I think it's a real good situation. I'm interested, Jim. I know you're not having a chance to read this, but what does it say? Practice flap raises red flag. What's the big flap?
Martellus Bennett got into a scrap yesterday with Kyle Fuller.
So what? So
that's a red
flag. That's a sign of a good competitive football team.
I think they apparently there was a little problem yesterday. Bennett took exception to an aggressive play by Kyle Fuller in an 11-on-11 drill that was apparently the altercation was so much Mark Trestman ended practice immediately.
Wow. That's but this is football.
Yeah.
So Martellus, you know what? I'm sure it'll all blow over. I think back to when I played football in high school, and I remember my junior year. Pete Kurtz was our captain, and we were scrimmaging, and we got into it, and the coach's reaction was just big smiles. They liked that. They liked the fact that two guys were going to scrap during a scrimmage because you know what? It's competitive. And I'm sure that I know you don't have time to read it, but I would like to hear what Trestman had to say as far as stopping practice and the whole incident.
Well, it was interesting here. I mean, apparently what happened was Bennett caught a pass from Cutler, and Fuller tried to strip the ball, and in the process of reaching for it, he pulled Bennett to the ground.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
And Bennett got up and shoved him and then threw him to the ground. And then Shea McClellan and John Bostic pulled Bennett off of Fuller. But Martellus was a little bit upset. And what does it say when Brandon Marshall comes over and tells you to calm down?
Wow.
Well, and though it was the most violent of the four altercations, so far in training camp, Trestman considered it a family squabble.
I would think so.
Yeah, I would think so too.
And I could see from both guys' point of view where you just you get your blood up a little bit, and it's a long, hot practice, and Bennett took exception, and he pushed Fuller, and Fuller went back at him. That's good stuff.
I think that's a sign the rookie is not backing down. I like that.
Well, the way it's looking right now, and I think I don't know if I said this on the air, but when we talked initially about Fuller being drafted, my feeling that now it's turned out a different way than what I had anticipated. I thought maybe Jennings and Fuller would be the corners, and Tillman would have a reduced role. But the way it's looking right now is Fuller will play corner with Tillman, and Jennings will be the nickel guy.
Yeah.
So, but I think I never expected.
I thought it was going to be the other way around.
Based on the ages of the corners that we have, I expected Fuller to see a lot of playing time this year, and it looks like my feeling is so far it looks like he's going to start.
Yeah. They do have a problem that they're going to need to address. They're going to need to address right now. Marcus Wilson broke his clavicle yesterday, and he was kind of being viewed as the third receiver.
I heard some. I don't remember where it was, but I think it was last night. I was at Merrimack Park umping, and some of the guys were.
Did you get rained up?
No, we played.
Okay.
Some of the guys I think were talking about bringing Earl Bennett back, and I was thinking, well, I mean, I like Earl Bennett, but I think it was meatball stuff. I don't think you're going to see Earl Bennett back unless has he hooked on with somebody. I don't even know.
I don't even know. That's a good question. I haven't seen anything. There's people who call the score keep wondering when Johnny Knox is coming back. So,
my understanding though was that Chris Williams has looked really good so far in camp, and they're looking forward to seeing him on the field where somebody's going to hit him. But I find it always interesting when the papers make a comment like that, because Chris Williams is actually not a veteran of the NFL, but has been in the CFL for a while. So
right.
He's used to, and he played college football,
right.
obviously. So he knows what it is to be hit.
Yeah.
So I really don't understand where that comment was coming from.
Well, I mean, they're talking about the. I mean, Wilson really kind of showed some promise, even though there were only a couple of catches last year. I think they were kind of viewing him to step forward this year. And your other candidates in camp right now are Josh Morgan. A couple of years ago, he led the Redskins with 48 catches.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Spurlock has 46 catches in his career, but hasn't caught a pass since 2012. Armonte Edwards, he's really more of a kick return.
Yeah.
Kick return candidate. And Josh Bellamy, Dale Moss, and Chris Williams has never caught a pass in the NFL. Now, Eric Weems might be a possibility, but Eric Weems is, I think, another one that you're looking at as a kick return guy, more of a special teams guy, and that's a guy who's like 5'9". Earl Bennett is still on the free agent market.
Oh, what is the difference though? If so what if he's 5'9" and Chris Williams is 5'8"? I mean,
well,
this whole
nothing. Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, you're looking at your two primary receivers right now who are fitting that NFL receiver mold.
Oh yes, I love those molds.
Yes.
I
know you're.
I'm a big mold guy.
You're a mold guy. You're a big mold, big moldy guy.
Don't we need a couple of 6'3", 6'4" cornerbacks in order to get into the mold of the NFL too?
Yeah,
I mean, as if you could find those guys every day.
We have to. They grow on a vine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If the guy could catch.
It was in Jerry Angelo's vineyard where everyone thought he went to get offensive linemen.
Yeah,
but they grow in my vineyard.
That's it, in his vineyard. But I hate to see Wilson go down because he was a seventh. He was the last drafted in the last round of the previous draft.
Yeah,
and a lot of people. I know that he had some problems at Washington State with. Who's the coach? Mike, can't think of his last name. The guy who had been at Texas Tech. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But at any rate, the Bears saw the talent, and I really thought the guy was that was a great pick in the last round, and he looks promising. He's not going to be gone forever with a broken clavicle, and it's going to be somebody we're going to have to replace temporarily, and I think they can do that. I don't see it being a huge crisis.
Yeah.
Or don't you agree?
No, I don't think. I think they'll fit. They'll find somebody. I think they were looking for an opportunity. I think what they look at it as a crisis right now is because here's a young guy, and they thought, okay, here's somebody who's spent some time working with Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey during the off season. Get the opportunity to make the next step, and he goes down now.
What, did they teach him how to be tall?
They taught him how to be tall.
Yeah. How about Josh Morgan? What's his? Did they give a height on him?
No.
I mean, if he was
and I mean, 2 years ago he led the Redskins with 48 catches.
Well, I was going to say, here's a guy who led his team with the most catches, And you know what? 48. I'm not sure. What did Marshall had?
Marshall
Probably
had
quite
100,
a few,
110.
So my feeling would
Just
be
remember the Redskins for the last couple of years have been pretty awful.
okay, but here's a guy who's caught the ball as the main receiver
Right.
and should have no problem being the third receiver.
Right.
I would say he'd be the logical guy to pencil in
he would
first.
he would seem to be the one that you'd want to give the first shot to.
And I think they probably brought him in for a reason. I mean, you add depth to they've added depth all over the board. And here's a perfect opportunity to take advantage of the depth that they brought in. One of the interesting things that came up in the Times yesterday, Jim, and I think it's worth talking about, is everybody has sort of ceded the punting role to O'Donnell because of his great leg.
Yeah, and you mentioned something yesterday when we were having coffee.
Yeah, they say that
about that?
Trussway has been the more accurate kicker, and also working with Robbie Gold has been a little bit sharper as far as the holding duties go.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't want to overlook the fact that, as Sports Jimmy would say, O'Donnell can really run with that ball, because I know that those fake punts by our special teams are going to be a big part of our offense this year.
Oh, my God.
We can't overlook that.
Somewhere Bobby Joe Green is looking and smiling right now after hearing
How
that.
about Bob Parsons? He was a quarterback at one time, so he gave
Ohio,
us
right?
the Penn State.
Penn State.
He gave us the dimension
I
we
was
could
thinking of
actually
Bob
throw the
Jenks.
ball. Of course,
Yeah,
I've seen almost every punter throw the ball.
sometimes rather pitifully.
Yeah, but you know what? They usually don't give them a whole lot to do. Throw it about 5 yards to a guy that's cutting right in front of you or something, and he
Yeah.
takes off because the defense isn't ready for it.
Yeah, or you get a bad snap.
Then he's got to do something with that.
You
You
get
definitely can't kick it after a bad snap. God
I've
forbid.
seen. I told you that one time on a semi-pro game. There, one team had a really, really good punter, and that was the extent of their offense. This guy could punt.
That's a good thing, I guess.
And I'm watching the game. I'm watching the game, and I think I was the PA announcer that day. And it was one of those days when they came in and they said, just a warning, the switch doesn't work on the microphone. Everything you say is going to be live, so be careful.
Ooh,
And
that's a red flag right
that's
there.
a red flag. And I said, Dolphins back in punt formation. And I looked up towards the field, and the team they were playing, the Chicago Chargers, was about to rush all 11. There was nobody back for the punt.
Ah,
And I went, the mic went under the table, and I went, oh God, they're going to rush 11.
mm-hmm.
And they rushed 11. The front line collapsed, and the only defense left on this kid was the up back, just looking at all these guys coming at him. And the punter took the ball, looked up at the air, looked up, saw everyone coming at him, did a little shuffle step and attempted to kick, and he kicked it right into the up back's rear end.
Ooh,
and the ball bounced away, and I got a full press box alongside of me, who suddenly break out in uproarious laughter.
yeah, I guess.
And I got and I'm trying hard not to laugh, so I unplugged the mic for a second, and I got my composure and plugged it back in, and I said, as a result of the mishandled snap on the punt, Chargers ball, 1st and 10, their own 36.
That was very judicious of you, Jim.
And all in the other room, all I heard was, "Ooh, nice job."
Nice job is right. Jeez, you really covered up on that one. Good. Hey, by the way, I forgot to ask you, did you have a game this weekend?
They were on the road this weekend.
Okay.
They were on
You
the
mean
road.
they don't pay for you to go on the road with them?
I don't. I was not about to go to the Quad Cities.
The Quad Cities, that's a good trip. They should be paying for your hotel. You could stay at Jumer's Castle Lodge. And
Is that still in business?
I don't know. I
thought
thought
it was. I thought it was out of business.
Is it really?
I don't know.
I mean, that's a great place.
I know.
Yeah.
But I don't travel anymore.
Wow. Well, yes, you do. You're going to go up to East Lansing.
Well, I'm going up there for my own.
Yeah, we know why you're going up there.
I'm going up there for my own reasons. I'm not going.
Yeah, well, we know what your own reasons are. You're as bad as John.
Yeah, well,
just as bad as John. You know what? I get all the bad publicity, and you guys are worse than I am. I'm telling you,
nothing like that.
Yeah, nothing like that.
Nothing like that.
Oh yeah,
we don't have to use. We don't have to use assumed names.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
All right. What
Besides,
are we on to
well, wait a minute, John's.
Oh, we got a break.
Yeah, we're breaking, or we broke.
Let's do a hand of Yahtzee here or something.
You are listening to Armchair Experts from the John Navita Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, August the 6th, with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. And this is Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, Illinois. And now back to Jim Leon and Rich Massaro and Armchair Experts.
All right, we played the hand of Yahtzee. We're back.
All right.
No, there was a social event this weekend. It was my cousin's 50th birthday. We went to Ravinia's Sunday night.
Who was there?
Hart.
Hart. Okay.
Yeah. So that was our fun Sunday night.
That sounded like fun.
Yeah. So I didn't want to. The thought of going 3.5 hours. I don't even know if Terry had a bus for the team. I've taken some of those bus rides, which usually just turn into drunken. I would say on the ride back, those rides can get a little bit too much. I just don't do that stuff anymore.
Well, when I worked for Windy City, they used to do the trips for the Chicago. Now, who was the Arena 2 football team we had that played at the Sears Center?
Oh,
can't think of their names.
You mean not the team that? The team that McMichael.
Yeah, I can't think of their name.
I was going to say the Renegades, but no, I don't think that's it.
They went to Pittsburgh to play, and they won a big game there. And the driver was telling me that on the way back now, McMichael tells them they see a bar, and he says, "Pull over. We're going to have one." And he's like, "Oh my goodness, this is not going. I know these guys; they're not going to have one." So about 3 or 4 hours later, they all pile back on a bus, drunker than skunks. He said that was a fun trip back from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I remember a trip back, and actually, it might have been. Where did we go? We might have been only Racine, and we got back to where Terry works out in Hillside, and before the bus left, somebody had to go back and get the mop. And
well, some of the most dangerous words in the English language is I'm only going to stop for one.
Oh no!
That's not ever happening.
That's
never has happened. Never will happen.
No. I in fact, it was funny. Just speaking of the Chicago Chargers, a couple of weeks ago, I ran into John Cola, who owned the Chargers and owns a couple of bars now.
Okay.
And he was telling me, he said, my birthday this week. He said, you and Terry he says, you haven't been in for so long. You and Terry need to come in for one drink. And I said, one drink means 1 a.m.
Yeah, that's right.
One drink means 1 a.m., and I can't do that kind of stuff anymore.
By the way, I shouldn't be asking you, but have you had your ear to the ground? Have you heard anything about our Ridgewood Rebels? What their prospects for the year are?
Haven't heard a thing yet. I'm just going to be as surprised as you are.
Are we going to be? Yeah, we'll be surprised when we start doing the games.
And I'm going to miss that first game because that's Labor Day weekend. I'm going to be out of town. So wow. I expect you to do an effective job of scouting that.
I'll be very. I want
to be prepared. I want to hear everything.
Everything.
I want to hear everything. So otherwise I need to know if I have to haul out some more Slim Whitman stories.
I think you should get prepared for the Slim Whitman stories here, Jim.
All right.
What else are you perusing over
Oh,
here?
I don't know. I see Johnny Manziel worked out with the starters for the first time yesterday.
I'll tell you, he's a money machine.
Yeah,
His jersey. Yeah, I didn't realize. I knew
think
Johnny
he's-
Manziel.
I think he's a little creep.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Johnny Manziel. I didn't realize how popular he was, but his jerseys are one of the most popular. I had no clue. I mean, I knew he was the Heisman Trophy winner a couple years ago.
Pictures of him rolling up a $20 bill in the bathroom to take a line.
No, I didn't see that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Huh.
Yeah, that was. I think they had to have a little chat with him about some of the little things.
Huh.
You think Andy Dalton is worth $115 million over 6 years as a quarterback?
I have no clue. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
115 million. I mean, he's a good quarterback.
That's
that's
the
deal he's going to sign.
That's the supposed deal, the 6-year extension.
6-year extension. You know what? I'd say in the NFL, if Jay Cutler can get the contract he's got, I don't see why Andy Dalton doesn't get.
I
what
suppose.
he's got.
I suppose that's Jay Cutler money then.
There's a guy who comes into Mariano's in the morning, Ken Thorson, Ken's got to be pushing 80, but he's still sharp. And one day we were talking, and he says, don't you think the salaries? He was talking in general, have gotten way out of line. And, my comment was, I have no problem with guys making whatever they can make. That's fine with me. But when you really sit down and look at it, I think he's got a good point. I know that, when you start to talk about Andy Dalton, 100 and what was it, 15?
115 over 6 years.
Over 6 years.
But, they did not release any other terms of the deal, so you don't know how much of that is guaranteed money.
Well, even at that, if the, what was I going to say? John's walking out of here with his telephone, and it distracted me for 1 second.
You're easily distracted.
I was going to say he just has not led them to a championship of any kind.
Made the playoffs.
Which I guess is a good step.
And they haven't won a game in the playoffs.
Yeah, which I wouldn't say is all the quarterback's fault, but I'm thinking what some of the and I blame the owners. The thinking on these salaries is beyond me sometimes. I don't know where they get their figures from. I think the easiest guy for me ever to justify being paid what they paid him was a guy like Jordan, where you could actually say he put
money.
He put people in seats.
He put people in the seats, and he sold product.
Yeah, he sold product, and that was. I don't know that these other guys have that ability, and so when you start to see Andy Dalton with a $115 million contract, I don't see anybody walking around with an Andy Dalton jersey or Bengals jerseys because Andy Dalton's on the team. And I'm not trying to put Andy Dalton down. That's just a fact of life.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if you whatever your top half a dozen quarterbacks in the NFL are, he's in that next tier, maybe under them. So he's not even, he's not like an Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning or something like Brady.
Put him more of the in the
with Cutler,
Jay Cutler tier.
Yeah, Cutler and Kaepernick and whoever else is in that.
Yeah. Interesting to see some injuries have already popping up. Tony Romo won't play in their preseason opener this week because he's still recovering from surgery from his back problem. New York Giants running back David Wilson's career is over after 2 seasons.
I didn't even know it started.
Yeah, well, they were hoping for a lot out of him.
They were?
Last year, and he just had this problem not being able to hang on to the ball. And you know what? I mean, if your head coach is Tom Coughlin, one thing you
better hang on to the ball.
You better hang on to the ball because that's a guy who takes the pregame meal seriously.
Yeah, although I think Tom Coughlin is probably a little bit overrated in terms of toughness. I think he's really. I'm not overrated. I shouldn't say he's a tough taskmaster, but I think he's really a sort of a decent guy. So
I think he is. I think he is too. John's wandering in and out. He's getting important calls.
I don't know what's going on.
I don't know what's going on here today either. Denver running back Monte Ball had an appendectomy, so he's out until the season opener. And I think they were expecting him to take over and assume the number one back this year because didn't Noshan Marino move on to somebody?
Yeah, he may have.
I think he did. I think I laugh here because they have a great article here in the Sun-Times about fantasy football, and that's probably feeds the meatballs. Yes, Noshan Moreno is with the Dolphins now.
These guys move around a lot. Yeah, Jim, do the Vikings set up in the shotgun most of the time? Do you know? Because I'm thinking to myself, you started talking running backs, and Monte Ball was he piled up some big numbers at Wisconsin when he was there.
Yeah.
Now he goes to Denver, and with Peyton Manning on the team, I have to say the running backs to me are just an afterthought. They hand them the ball once in a while.
Yeah.
Well, or I'm thinking where you got a guy like Adrian Peterson. Do those guys run out of the tee? Do they run out of? I mean, they got to run out of the tee.
They run out of the tee. They run out of anything.
Hand him the ball.
You're gonna, if you've got the personnel, you're gonna take advantage of it. I mean, a lot of people, I don't think expected Moreno to have the kind of season he had last year. Especially with a quarterback and the receivers that Manning had.
Mm-hmm.
But the comment here from this writer was regarding Moreno and the fact that he moved to the Daltons. Even before worries arose about his injured knee, I would have bet my retirement fund, meager as it is, that Moreno would never approach his 2013 stats in Miami.
You know what? I would agree with that almost 100%.
Absolutely.
Because when you have the advantage, though, as a running back, even though they're not going to hand you the ball a ton of times, you're not going to be a workhorse like a Peterson. When you're playing with Peyton Manning, they're not going to think about, you're not going to be the focus. So you're going to have the advantage of them concentrating on other things, and I think that's going to open things up for you. Now you go to Miami with a totally different situation. How productive are you going to be? So I totally agree with his premise. Not to say it couldn't turn out another way. Obviously, who knows? Maybe Marino is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he'll do the same thing with Miami he did with Denver. But I would say, as far as what this man is saying in the article, I would agree with what he's saying. I don't think that he's going to replicate what he did with Denver.
And it's interesting too, because here's a move. Do you play fantasy? You
No, I never have.
Never
fantasy.
have. No, it's always interesting for me because it gives me an opportunity and it keeps me interested in watching other games.
Okay.
Too. I don't play in any money leagues anymore.
Okay.
I did, but there's been a league where a bunch of us from a bunch of scoreheads have played for years.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a tradition now.
Mm-hmm.
But there was one move made here that I didn't really, I guess I didn't pay any attention to it when it was made, talking about someone who can have their value increase. Emmanuel Sanders is with the Broncos now, and he has the talent since Eric Decker has gone to the Jets. So Peyton Manning could really make this guy a star.
Oh, you know what, Jim? The thing about when you talk about things like that, it just makes me think of all these games, these team sports, how much everybody really is their performance is dependent on the people around them.
Oh, sure.
And you could take the biggest star, and or the 53rd guy on the team, and it makes a big difference. I always said, I've said for many years, what would have happened if Joe Montana would have ended up with Tampa Bay and Vinny Testaverde would have ended up with the 49ers? Would we still be saying Joe Montana is one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game, or would we be saying that he would have been an okay quarterback, but I mean he would have had the disadvantage of being with Tampa Bay. He actually had the
and remember,
good fortune.
Joe Montana was a third-round draft
pick.
Yeah.
He had the good fortune of falling into a system at the time when Bill Walsh was first putting in his West Coast offense that fit what he could do really well. I mean, people say, well, the Bears could have had him. Everybody could have had him. What was he going to do with the Bears? Probably last 5 or 6 years and say, man, why did I wish the heck I would have been with some other team.
What did I do?
These guys ruined me.
Yeah.
Or I'm not ruined me, but you're not in the same situation you were in.
Yeah.
And I don't care. You could name anybody. You got to be in the right spot. When Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain had their big rivalry back in the 60s, Bill Russell, 11 NBA championships, I think it was, and Bill Russell always got the better, in quotes, of Wilt Chamberlain. My feeling is, if you switch the two, okay, you're never going to beat the Celtics now if you put Wilt Chamberlain with that team.
No.
And Bill Russell is still going to be a very good player, but you put him with the teams that Chamberlain played with, and I got to say, he would be a factor, but they're not going to win no 11 world championships.
He would make them better.
Yeah, they would be better, but they're not winning 11 world championships.
Would they win 11 championships?
Right.
No, you're probably right on that.
So and so why I think what I like about what this guy is saying in this article is it is so important. Who are you playing with? What's the coaching staff? What's the philosophy of the team?
Sure.
When the Bears won the Super Bowl in '85 with the 46 defense, I think being obviously in my mind the prime mover, Buddy Ryan was hailed as a defensive genius. But the reality was, there's two things. The first thing is that Neil Armstrong is actually the guy who brought that defense. So it wasn't Buddy Ryan's creation.
Right.
The second thing was he had really pretty much the perfect personnel for that type of system. When he went on to coach the Eagles, tried the same thing, not as effective.
It
Doesn't
didn't
have
work
the
as
same
well.
people. So it's and that all goes back to one of our eternal conversations about, does the coach a system, or does he coach for the players he's got? And it can work. It's worked either way, because if you can pick the players that fit your system, it'll work. But if you don't have that, you don't have the players for the system, then you got to change what you do.
And you get the guys, you get the coaches who are going to put their system in come hell or high water.
Right. That's
no
the
matter
problem.
what. This is all I know. It's going to work.
Right. Yeah.
It's going to work. One of the and I should have brought this article along because it was interesting just talking about that. A few weeks ago, the Sports Illustrated had their annual "Where Are They Now?" issue.
Oh, I think I saw that. Yeah.
Did you look at it?
I looked a little bit at it.
Go back and read the article about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Okay.
I love the cover article. So little talent, so dadgum much fun.
Yeah, yeah.
But they talked about the fact that John McKay was trying to get that USC offense to work.
Yeah.
And it didn't. And he kept saying, run it again. It's going to work. It's going to work.
Yeah, which is stupid.
Which is stupid, and it didn't work.
No, it didn't work at all. Didn't. Yeah.
Although there were some great quotes that came out of John McKay's mouth, especially, Coach, what about your team's execution? I'm all for it.
Yeah. Well, there was another guy, and I read a little bit of that article that caught my attention because I think they used to call him Baby Jordan.
Harold Miner.
Harold Miner. And
I did not read that article.
Read a little bit of it. And the thing, where I think
USC.
Where I think the media and the sports writers always have a blind spot is that his athleticism, there's a lot of guys I would say that athletically were probably the equal of Michael Jordan and even better, maybe. I mean, not even maybe. There's guys who are better athletes than Michael Jordan. I'll say that right out. But the combination of the athleticism with the I don't know, what do you want to call it? Athletic intelligence, I'll just use that.
Yeah.
Was unique. The work ethic, the competitiveness. And obviously Minor was just a great talent, but yeah, that's what he was. He didn't have all of that all of those other abilities, at least to the extent of being another Michael Jordan. Not saying he was a bad player, or because he wasn't. He was a very talented player.
He was a talented player.
But I mean, you're only going to have a certain amount of Michael Jordans or whoever else you want to throw into that category.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
And that's just a unique mix there.
Yeah.
I used to I complimented a young guy on Friday, and I won't go into the whole story, but saw him play in a big 16-inch tournament a couple weekends ago. And I've seen him play in the local parks. And I told him he reminded me of another great player that I had known. And I said, this was the thing. A guy like that is just competitive, say, at Merrimack Park as he is in the national championship. And a guy like Michael Jordan is just as competitive if he's playing on a playground as if he's playing in the NBA championship. I'm reading a book about Michael right now, and he said he's one of the few guys, he says, I love practice. He goes, I play some of my best basketball in practice. Mm-hmm. So this is a guy who just wants to compete, and that's really the name of the game. And so I look at it as a very mature professional attitude when you can compete against playground players as hard as you compete against, in this case we're talking basketball, NBA players. That's a huge thing. And when you see guys play, as hard on the sandlots as they play on the big stage, that is a competitor. And that's what really separates the really great ones from just the good ones.
Yeah.
Michael said that when he was on the Dream Team.
Oh, I was just about to say, going to talk about the practices between him and Magic?
Him and Magic, but he also said that, and he didn't name names, and Magic was not one of the guys because Magic had the same type of mindset as Michael. But he said he was amazed at these guys who were great NBA players who just didn't get it about practice in his mind, and didn't get where they could have even been better players because
Alan,
they thought that they either didn't want to practice a lot, or in practice they didn't go all out, and he just
Allen Iverson. We're talking about
practice.
He's practice.
Yeah. But I mean, you're talking about guys. Now, again, he didn't name names, but the guys who are on that team, you're talking about Chris Mullin, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing. Charles Barkley. So you're talking about some really great names in the NBA. And again, he didn't say who he was actually talking about, but I said I found that interesting.
Yeah.
Because you would think those guys, because of their stature, would be the hardest workers.
Yeah. Let me get off on a couple other things before we.
You got your
before
book
we get out of
about the
here.
White Sox.
I will recommend this book if anybody wants to.
Comiskey's name.
If anybody wants to read some baseball history, I would recommend this book, The Misunderstood Legacy of Charles A. Comiskey, Turning the Black Sox White. Mm-hmm. It's a fascinating story, a fascinating biography of Charles Comiskey, who was the founder of the White Sox, talking about his career from his days as a player to the White Sox and the problems and putting some of the myths regarding the Black Sox scandal of 1919 to rest. He wasn't as cheap as he was made out to be.
Well, I would, yeah.
When you think of the payrolls back then,
mm-hmm.
and to hear that the White Sox had a payroll of $90,000 in like 1917, 1918, 1919, think what that translates to today. And he was they were one of the top payrolls, if not the top payroll.
Well, they had one of the top teams.
They had one of the top teams. So the fact that the poor Chicago players, that wasn't exactly the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although Comiskey, when he got a player, he expected him to perform.
Mm-hmm.
And there were he had a lot of issues over the years, health issues. His wife his wife had health issues over the years. His son, Lou, who inherited the ball club after Charles passed away in 1931. I mean, he had health issues all his life and only lived a few years after that.
As you're talking about Comiskey and that would have been the Black Sox were the 1919. And we have James Rhodey here with us today in the control room, and I'm thinking a lot of the things, not just James, but he's a young guy. When we talk about even a guy like Michael Jordan, who everybody knows, Michael Jordan hasn't played basketball for 15 years or so,
something
maybe
like that, yeah.
So sometimes there's a disconnect, and what made me think of that is when you start talking baseball pre-1920, because the game was played in a totally different way, because that would be pre-Babe Ruth becoming a regular everyday player.
Right.
I sometimes have trouble getting my mind around. Well, you talk about the Black Sox, the White Sox in 1919 having one of the best teams. But I remember some of the names from, you had Buck Weaver, Chick Gandil, Ray Schalk, Shoeless Joe Jackson,
Dickie Kerr, Eddie Cicotti.
Right. But offensively, the game was pretty much powerless. I mean, I don't. The leading home run hitter on that team would have been Joe Jackson, and I don't think he would have hit that many home runs. But the game was played in a totally different way. And not that it's not interesting, but it's hard for me to get my mind around the way they played, because then shortly after that, when the Babes started playing as a regular and hitting a lot of home runs, it changed the way the whole game was played.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a little bit of a disconnect there for me. I always have a hard time distinguishing. They'd say, well, Buck Weaver was a great third baseman, a great player, but you look at his stats and you're like, well, why
was he a great player? But you also look at the mitts from back then.
Yeah, that's true.
You could say, how could they
even catch the ball?
How could they catch the ball?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I look at my first baseball mitt, and I'm thinking, this thing is, I don't have it anymore, but when I still had it around, this thing is an antique. I mean, no baseball player would put that thing on his hand today. There's no way.
My first mitt was signed by Jungle Jim Rivera.
Yeah, I had a Hal Jeffcoat.
Okay.
My brother, not myself, when he first started to play football, and we played actually on the same team, even though there was a big age, not big, but the 4-year age difference, because when you played Little League, the third graders, it was 3rd through 8th grade,
mm-hmm.
and he had a helmet that, first off, not much in the way of padding, and it was a single bar. I'm thinking, how did this kid not get killed with that thing on? Especially he wasn't a big guy, and he was playing. We practiced all together, so you had to play against the big guys.
Yeah.
Oh, holy mackerel! It's lucky this guy survived.
Yeah.
I guess all you did when you were a little guy like that, you probably just hid, and the big guys knew enough not to really whack you around. So
that's true.
But no, the equipment, think of this. Babe Ruth, I think they said that his bat was normally a 48-ounce bat. I don't think that's a legal bat in today's baseball.
Honestly, I don't know. I thought it was more than that. Wasn't it 60?
No, I don't think it was 60.
No,
it might have been 52, maybe 52. Something like that.
I remember going into McCuddy's, the late lamented McCuddy's, across the street from the old ballpark from Old Comiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Getting down there early for a game, and I was sitting in back having a beer and having something to eat, and Mrs. Sinisi came out, who was one of the McCuddy girls.
Mm-hmm.
And we chatted a little bit, and I said something like, "Ma, tell me a story." And she says, "Well, just go into the bar and look up on the wall." I said, "And you're going to see a picture of Babe Ruth's bat." He says, "You're not going to see a picture of it. You're going to see one of Babe Ruth's bats up there." He said, "And you're going to see a picture below. You're going to see a picture right around that of Babe Ruth in uniform, holding a little girl on his lap."
That little girl was her, right?
And that little girl was her during a game. He went across the street to get a hot dog.
Well, yeah, Babe would run across to get a hot dog and a beer.
And this was during a game.
Well,
So you see the size of this massive thing up on the wall, and you think about the days of Ernie Banks with his 31-ounce bat and how he could snap that thing around.
Oh, you know what? I used to work with a guy that was, he was really in tune to sports, and we were having a conversation one day, and he said, you know what? I mean, how would Babe Ruth, he said, hit against a guy, and he named a guy that was a hot commodity for a while, that had a wicked breaking pitch, and I looked at him, I said, well, let me ask you this. How would anybody today, any of these guys, I don't care who you take, whatever great player from this era you want to name, how would they hit against today's pitching or any era's pitching using Babe Ruth's bat? You know what?
You can't get around on it.
I would say Barry Bonds, Albert Pujols, whoever, Derek Jeter, those guys, if they hit 200, they'd be fortunate
lucky
if they had to use his bat because they just couldn't swing it.
They couldn't swing it. They couldn't get around on it. You and I were talking yesterday. We were trying to figure out the logic, what the thought process was on the Red Sox and A's trade.
Yeah, that was an interesting trade.
We were trying to figure this out. What wound up happening was Cespedes went to Boston for John Lester and Johnny Gomes. Mm-hmm. And we were trying to figure out some of the logic here on this. Gomes seems like a player that can fit in anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the reasons that I obviously needed him to replace Cespedes in the lineup. But a couple other things I was looking around last night and finding they were talking, and this comes off of SportsUnbiased.com. Who wrote this? Brian Reese was talking about the winners and losers at the trade deadline, and one of the things he said that as far as too early to call was Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of shows the logic here now that maybe one of the things why they may have done this. Because Lester is going to be a free agent after the season.
Sure.
And obviously Oakland feels they can win this year, and they're going to, and that's the reason for the deal. I know many analysts believe the Boston Red Sox were the big winners in the trade deadline by trading John Lester for two-time home run champion Yoenis Cespedes, but I still think calling him a winner is too early to call. The real win would be if the team is able to re-sign Lester in the offseason while being able to offer Cespedes a large contract after the 2015 season, something the Athletics were not rumored to be in a position to do.
There's one thing I have to. He said that's two-time home run derby champion, not two-time home run champion.
I know. I thought that too.
Yeah,
I thought that too. The loss of Johnny Gomes isn't necessarily detrimental to the team in the long run, and they set themselves up nicely to make two big signings in the next two seasons. I ultimately think this trade will be a fantastic deal for Boston, but until some of the pieces fall into place, I'm not ready to call this deal a winner.
Well, I don't know if I agree with everything that he's saying, but I think the trade could be good for both sides.
I think it can be, too.
It probably Boston is thinking more long-term, and Oakland's thinking short-term, because you brought up a good point yesterday over coffee. Oakland feels maybe their window of opportunity is going to close within the next year or two, so why not get it done now? I also think that when you weigh the trade, Cespedes has been raised to a level of stardom by the press, but last night when we talked on the phone and we looked at the comparables as far as players go, Cespedes versus Gomes, the comparables for Cespedes weren't that impressive. Now, I think the key thing for the Red Sox is a right-handed power hitter in Cespedes playing in Fenway Park.
Right.
And, of course, the key thing for the A's is you need somebody who could at least take Cespedes' spot and not lose too much there, which Johnny Gomes can do. And you're going to gain a really good pitcher for the last part of the season and hopefully into the playoffs and World Series. That's going to put you over the top and help you win the World Series. So it's one team is looking more down the road. The other team is looking down the road, but not as far.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really probably got the potential to be a really good trade for both teams.
Oh, I think so too.
Based on what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
But it's I'll tell you the truth. When I first heard the trade, I thought, oh man, what is Oakland doing? But then the more I thought about it, and the more I looked at what the players actually do as opposed to the reputations they have, that was a whole different story. Because Cespedes, there's no doubt he's a talent. But if you really look at all the numbers, my opinion is he's better than Johnny Gomes, but not like it's
much better. Not like it's that much better.
Right.
My first reaction was obviously I thought, "Whoa, this is a trade.
Mm-hmm.
This is a trade like the old days."
Mm-hmm.
And it was very clear then. I really thought, okay, Oakland thinks they're going to win. They think they have a good shot this year. That's why they made their big deal earlier in the month with getting Samardzija and Jason Hamill, who, by the way, was placed on waivers.
Hamill was played, but
yes.
That doesn't mean that he's going to.
Yeah, it doesn't mean he's
clear waivers.
No. The comment was Hamill. A deal seems unlikely since Oakland dealt away some rotation depth in Tommy Malone. But some other interesting ones that hit the waiver wire the other day, and they will be on waivers until Wednesday. The Phillies, Marlon Byrd, Jonathan Papelbon, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Cole Hamels, Carlos Ruiz. Not a surprise. Also, A.J. Burnett, Ryan Howard. Nobody's going to take Ryan Howard with that $68 million left on his contract.
No, but the one guy who's probably going to be of interest is Marlon Byrd.
Yeah.
I think
there'll be some teams that'll be interested in him down the road.
Now, the other
but
thing,
these waivers are good until Wednesday.
So
we'll have to see if anybody gets claimed.
The other thing is I don't know what his contract is, or if he. I think what I've read is that he would move under certain circumstances, but the Yankees and the A's are still looking for second base help, and I'm thinking Chase Utley would be a guy that they would be interested in.
Chase Utley would be a logical one. Hey, you got to get out of here. I'm looking at the old clock on the wall.
I got to get out of here?
Well, you got to get out of here. You have other assigned duties, don't you?
I do.
It's 9:45.
Oh, that's all right. I'm good to 11 today.
Oh,
so.
I thought you were I thought you were at 10 o'clock.
No.
As we're recording this.
I appreciate you thinking about that, though.
But anyhow, well, we need to do it anyhow because I've run out of things to talk about.
Well, I'd like to.
Go back.
I always appreciate working with the Hall of Famer John DeVita, and good to see James Rhodey back, and of course the voice of the Rebels, Jim Leon. So it's my privilege to work with you guys today.
Oh, gosh. Richard Manano.
Witness protection.
Hey, time for us to get out of here. Hope you enjoyed it. We had some fun rambling around on various and sundry topics like we normally do. We'll see you again we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Thanks for listening, and we are out of here.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, August the 6th, the year 2014, on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with the WRHS sports announcers Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita. Audio engineer is James Rhodey. Radio station manager is Kevin Zeflick. The executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network is Mr. John Chiconda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Tuesday, August the 5th. Until the next time, be safe, and thanks for listening.